Okay, guys, now we have another good friend, exquisite visionary. Please join me in welcoming Jack Hidary on stage. Jack, please join us.
Mayor Jack.
I know. Tell me about it.
And Jack always likes to make an entrance. Here we go. We'll put you center stage.
Oh, thank you.
So,
First of all, Tassos, I want to congratulate you and the whole Monaco team on a fantastic Monaco house this year. Last year, we had a lot of great energy from Monaco, but we were squeezed into a small jewel box. And this year we have proper space and wonderful.
You know what happened there, Jack? We hadn't told them you're coming, so they only gave us a small space. This year we made sure we said Jack is going to be with us.
Good.
Listen, guys, Jack runs and is the CEO of Sandbox AQ. He is at the forefront of AI and quantum. He's a great author. By the way, for those of you who haven't read his book, AI or Die, read it or you will die. And it's interesting.
It's a very subtle title. Very subtle.
Okay, Jack has 2 books. The first book he gave me, I think I dropped at page square root of 8. That was it was very mathematical. But this book is all about how CEOs can actually use AI. And the fascinating thing, Jack, which I haven't told you, is you actually explain how it works. Like the first part of how a neural network and how AI works and renders, I think is a must-read for all. So let's start with something, and today is going to be a very interesting discussion because we hear a lot of things. We hear LLMs, LQMs, we hear AI, everybody's doing that, agents. But I want us to start by really examining and for you to explain the difference between an LLM and an LQM, because I think that is very important and very few people understand.
Well, Tassos, first of all, great to be with you, great to be here and to support Monaco House. And the innovation that's happening in this house as well. So the AI that you've all been using, ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic, great models, and that is really AI for the digital world. You can make documents, text, images, videos, really fun, fantastic. But when we're going to look back 10 years from now, we will look at this period of time as a very small sliver of what ultimately AI will be. And one of the biggest parts of AI is AI for the real world. So AI for the digital world, fantastic. But if we want to make a new medicine, we want to make a drug for cancer, we want to make a new battery chemistry to store energy or for a vehicle, we want to make a new material to send a rocket to space with a lighter rocket so they could bring more payload. All these are questions for AI for the real world, and that cannot be a model that's trained on cat pictures and Reddit is not the model you want to use to send someone to space. And so we need another kind of AI, and that's what's emerging right now. That's what we focus on. That's what others are focusing on now. When you hear Jensen talk about AI for the physical world, physical AI, others are working on it as well. This is the next big wave of AI, is the real world impact. And that means that we cannot train on the internet. We cannot download the web, Tassos, and say, hey, now let's go train a model. And the models themselves have to be different. And in point of fact, when we look at the data that we need for the real world, it must come from the real world. It cannot come from a textbook or download it from the web. We have to do real world experiments. We have to build molecules and test them in the real world. We have to look at, if we're doing AI for financial services as an example, which again is another quantitative area, LQMs, large quantitative models, then we need to have data from the financial world. And if we're going to do data for the energy world, we need data from the material science and that world as well. So these are 3 big areas as examples where we need LQMs, large quantitative models, and LLMs are not fit for purpose.
And Jack, this is great, but give us an example, and you're using LQMs in pharma. What is a practical case study of how these are being used today already?
Yeah. Well, right now that's happening. We were on stage yesterday with Sanofi. We have other pharma partners and biotech partners, UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, many others. And what you find is that the pharma community did not have software and systems to really predict what's going to happen when you take a drug, manufacture it, and put it into a human body. And that's why you see the huge failure rate, Tassos, before this software came about. The failure rates in pharma, I don't know if people even realize what the failure rates are. It takes about 10, 15 years to develop one drug. And then when it gets to clinical trial, we have significant failure rates. I'll just ask the audience, Tassos, if we could, what are the failure rates of drugs in a clinical trial? I'll start the bidding at 20% failure. Any other bids? 80%? Any other bids?
And John Burros of Albion, keep quiet because you know you're in the industry. Anybody else?
Anybody else? 98, yeah. So it's about 85 to 90%, right? Failure. Now, if we were in the construction business in this room and we said we're going to build a skyscraper, Tassos, of 50 stories, and there's an 85, 90% chance it's going to fall down in the first 30 days, that would not be a great construction business. That is the pharma business today. And the only reason why it works is that once in a while, one building stands and it's worth multiple billions of dollars and it pays for all the failures. That is not a great business model. And it's also not great for patients. When we have failures in clinical trials, it's not just headlines in the business news. It's also headlines, unfortunately, for the patients. And we've got to do better. Alzheimer's, dementia, 40 years of research, Tassos. What if we have to show for it? Does anyone here aware of a fantastic drug for Alzheimer's? Anyone aware of a fantastic drug for dementia? No. Every one of our families in this room, unfortunately, will be touched by these neurodegenerative diseases because as we grow older, that's when they hit. Cancer, the same thing. Heart disease. Here in Switzerland, across Europe, in the United States, in most countries, heart disease, cardiac disease is the #1 killer. We have all the statins, we have all the drugs, we have all the diagnostics, and yet we have people dying, and that's the #1 killer in the world. So we have a challenge in the pharma world, and we need better systems to model the body, model the drug, and understand what's going to happen before it goes into the first human. That's what LQMs are about. That's what looking at training on biology, chemistry, and physics. We can model the molecules themselves before they hit the first human.
And Jack, we have a lot of people here from the financial sector, including the Minister of Finance of Monaco, Derek Joyce from XYB, I see Francesco Grossoli from CMB, and I always speak and explain the risks and the dangers of quantum breaking all their encryption and systems. And I know in Sandbox, it's something that you have worked for and you have solutions. How big is the problem and what can people do about it today? And I say that because it's a unique gathering here of regulators and private enterprise. And I think the understanding is very important.
Yeah. Well, banking is very important for Monaco and it's very important for the world. And there are two key parts that we really want to focus on when it comes to financial services and banking. First of all is the quantum threat. You absolutely put your finger on it, Tassos, with Q-Day. So Q-Day is coming. I have to tell you, I have to share that with you. Q-Day is the day that quantum computers will scale and will break the key cryptography that we use every day to keep our banks and transactions safe, to keep our telcos working, to keep our governments working, confidential information inside companies. All this uses a set of protocols that were started in the 70s and 80s. One of them is called RSA, after Ravesh, Shamir, and Edelman. One is called ECC, elliptic curve cryptography. These are the standards we've all been using. When you have your phone and you connect via an app to your bank, that is going and using RSA or ECC, and that will be broken by quantum computers. We don't have those quantum computers today that are scaled enough to run that algorithm, but they're coming soon. First of all, it's public information. The Chinese have made it public that they're working on it right now. They've empowered Pan Jianwei, a very noted physicist, to run this operation, and he's building, and his teams are building several quantum computers going to scale in the next coming years. The US, Europe, there are many, many quantum computers being built all across Europe, all across the US, and eventually we'll get to a scaled quantum computer that has error correction. That is, that if there's any fault in it, it will find it and correct itself. And once that happens, then it can crack any of those keys that are used for encryption. And of course, related to financial services, and very popular at this conference as well, is cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency, what is the crypto in cryptocurrency? Cryptography. Cryptography that's used in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and Ethereum and all blockchain is RSA and ECC. I see Steve Funk here. He's worried. He's checking his Bitcoin right now. And this is an issue. We must engage with the Bitcoin, with the Ethereum, with the blockchain community, and engage this community so that we move over to a quantum safe foundation for all blockchain, for all cryptocurrency. Otherwise, people can double spend your Bitcoin once this kind of computer exists. And that will not be a good thing. We'll have complete chaos and an implosion of the entire cryptocurrency. And Anthony, who I know well, was just talking about Bitcoin, and he's been very involved in that. And he and I have been talking, and others are talking as well, about how do we get the community to move over. So there's the traditional banks and the SWIFT system and the ACH system. We must protect that. We must protect all these transactions, and we must also move blockchain to the new area. Now, the second part, Tassos, of the financial service arena is portfolio construction, portfolio optimization, and risk management. Recently, a large insurance company, one of the top 5 in the world, came to us and said, we have a problem, Jack. We are trying to make risk models work. We have traditional risk models that go back 30 years. We only can run them once every quarter or so. We've got a problem. We want to be dynamic in our risk assessment. Every day we should be looking at our risk profile, having $100+ billion of policies in this insurance company. And those are not available in a large language model. A language model trained on words is not going to help you manage your risk as an insurance company, as a bank, as a lender. That is not the right tool. It's not fit for purpose. But a quantitative model trained on these areas is the thing that is fit for purpose. So in the financial world, we have both a threat that all the foundation is actually going to shake very soon. We must move over to the new standards. And the good news is there are new standards that we can all move to, adopted by Europe, adopted by the US and others. And we must also now start to use these tools to look at risk management and how we can construct and optimize portfolios going well beyond the old models of Monte Carlo. As much as we love Monte Carlo.
We do. So let me move a little bit on into an area that I think is very topical: robotics, fears, skill development, humans, robotics. Let's start with robotics. How do you think that the coming of AI, whether it's LQMs, some LLMs, is going to affect robotics?
Yeah. Well, look, humanoid robots are coming in faster than people think. Already there's a lot of robots in the world, but you just don't see them. Obviously, you've seen pictures and videos of automotive robots that are big welding machines and things like that. We're not talking about those kinds of robots here. When you look at a warehouse, logistics center, which is fundamental to all of our society, moving goods around as they come to the port of Rotterdam or port of Antwerp and come throughout the entire European continent, how do we get those goods now? Well, most of the ports now are automated, right? And that's a form of robotics. A form of robotics that you can actually touch and feel today is Waymo and Tesla robotaxis. And if you look at Waymo has taken quite a bit of time, but the investment paid off. Just recently, a number of months ago, Google announced that Waymo has hit 450,000 paid rides a week. And that's only with 2,500 cars. My prediction to you for 2026 is that Tesla will field at least 2,000 or 3,000 cars. Waymo will probably double to 5,000 cars. I believe both Waymo and Tesla will hit 1 million paid rides a week, driverless paid rides a week, within the next 18 months. So a bit of a bold prediction, but we can check back next year. We'll still have 6 months left next year to check on that prediction. But that's a robot. That is a robot. Has anyone here been in an autonomous vehicle with no driver? Anyone? Okay, so we have to bring them to Davos next year. But it is quite an experience. And initially, I was there, fortunately, at some of the earliest versions of Waymo. And the thing that allowed me to be comfortable is that screen they show you, where it shows what the computer is thinking. And I think that that's one of the lessons about robotics. We have to be transparent to the users around the robot, what the robot is thinking. And I think that's going to allow us to cohabitate with these robots, to work alongside these robots in a way that is more comfortable. Now, when it comes to humanoid robots, walking, talking, 2 legs, 2 arms, I have personally seen quite a few of these. China has a dozen companies that are looking to really be world leaders in this area. If you look at Unitree, Ubitech, there's a number of companies out there that are very quickly creating interesting humanoid robots. In America, we have quite a few companies as well. We have the Tesla robot, of course. We have Figure.ai, Apptronic, Agility. There's 4 or 5 companies that are really making good strides in humanoid robots. And people may say, wow, Jack, that's probably many, many years away. I would offer to you today that you'll start seeing humanoid robots within key prototype testing areas in hospitals, in logistics centers, and in construction sites in the next 3 years. Now, it won't be scaled, it won't be millions of them, but you'll start seeing them being used. Already today at Temple University Hospital in Philadelphia, there are humanoid robots right now being tested, not thankfully, Tassos, to do surgery, not for surgery, but for doing the other things, allowing the doctors and nurses to do their medical jobs and taking care of the linens and towels, and also, most importantly, sanitizing the room with UV light. Everyone here knows about MRSA, MRSA. It's one of the pathogens that exists in hospitals and kills 100,000 people in Europe every year and 100,000 people in the US every single year. The only way to get rid of that pathogen is UV light. But unfortunately, UV light is also harmful to us. And so a robot going into that room between patients is the right way to actually do that. So that's actually an example where a robot can do the job better and actually save many, many people's lives. I submit to you that within 36 months from now, you're going to start to see these things pop up in the worlds around you. I don't think it's going to be in your home necessarily, because that's actually a more complex place than a workplace. A workplace actually has fewer degrees of freedom than a home where you can have a dog, a parakeet, things popping up, kids running around, all kinds of safety issues. So I think that's going to take a little more time. But I do think that in the workplace, we're going to start to see humanoid robotics. And I think it's going to be a very big positive to society in healthcare and places like that.
Jack, it's interesting. And if you look at how humanoid robots work, and I don't know if people are aware of that, but imagine when a human learns, you start from elementary school, you go up, you become a PhD. Some of us are very smart. The problem is, once the next generation comes in, you start from scratch again.
Yeah.
You start 1 + 1 = 2. A humanoid robot keeps that knowledge. So accumulates.
Learns.
Not only that, but just so you understand how exponential, not only does your knowledge never go down, so if you are Einstein, the next person, the next humanoid starts from that level. That's the basis. But also, every humanoid robot doing something, that knowledge comes back to the common AI that is used by humanoids. So imagine if you have 100,000 humanoids out there doing a task. At the end of the day, every one of them knows how to do that. So if one is cleaning snow in Alaska and the other one is working in an office or a manufacturing line, they all know. So the exponential growth of learning is going to be huge, which brings me to my question. What happens with humans and skill development?
Well, we got to double down. Earlier today, we were talking about, for example, training programs in the UAE right now. MBZ UAI is a training program to create more AI scientists, engineers in the UAE. I commend every country to think about what training they will provide to their folks. First of all, to be creators and producers of this technology. People talk about sovereign AI, Tassos, and often what they're talking about is data centers. And data centers are important, and we should look at data centers. But to me, that's not the fundamental issue. The first fundamental issue is skills. Does your country have a core set of people who can not only use this technology, but help create the technology, to adapt the technology to the culture, to the business needs of that community, of that country? And I think I see some countries doing that, such as UAE, such as Saudi, and a few others. Many are not. And you don't need millions of people to be involved. In the case of MBZ UAI, it's only about 320 students that are in the cohort each year. And they're going to ultimately produce a few thousand people in the UAE to be this vanguard. And I think that's a good model for us all to look at. Just as Singapore was a great model, taking a country that had very little resources and now becoming a worldwide shining example. Israel, the same thing. Now UAE and others are also showing us the way in terms of skills development. So the first skill I recommend is not for everyone in the country, but having a cohort of people who can build and add to the overall usage of this technology and the capability of this technology. The second skill is a skill of critical thinking, learning, and imagination, creativity. And we don't talk about STEM, we talk about STEAM because we have the arts in there. In the world of robotics, automation, AI, creativity is more important than ever. And as an entrepreneur my entire life, I started my first companies in primary school, and then in secondary school, and then in college. And I was fortunate to be surrounded, Tassos, by small business people all around myself in Brooklyn, New York, where I grew up. we didn't really have any professionals around us. We didn't have doctors or lawyers or folks like that to model. The models I had around me were people starting small businesses. And I think that ability to be a creative, when I say creative in this case, is to create a new business, to be entrepreneurial, to put things together, to say, how can we solve that problem? And that's what entrepreneurs are. They're problem solvers. It takes a lot of creativity. I would encourage countries to think about how could they bring forth that kind of skill base. In the world of AI, that is still going to be paramount.
And Jack, you mentioned the Middle East, and I know you're doing a lot of work. What I'm interested in is you have been able to bring together a very innovative way of you as private enterprise and governments coming together and creating. Tell us a little bit more about that, because you're one of the few people that has been very successful at doing that.
Well, it's a great question, because traditionally, when you think about who can create a new drug, you'd say, well, a pharma company does that, a biotech company does that. Yet, we announced with the Bahrainis, with the Kingdom of Bahrain, that we're going to create a new drug with them. That the kingdom itself, the sovereign itself, which has a life sciences unit in its sovereign entity, is going to create a new drug using our software. Now, that was not even possible 5 or 10 years ago, before this kind of software, these kind of systems existed, because you need all the labs and things like that. But two things happened to us. First, there are now labs around the world, part of CROs, clinical research organizations, that you can tap into to test things and do physical experiments to validate the predictions of the computer. Number two, this software exists that I mentioned before that allows us to predict what's going to happen with these drugs and to design new drugs. And that means now it democratizes where we can create this IP. The intellectual property, Tassos, of biotech, 95% of it is in 5 countries in the world.
Wow.
One of those countries is the one we're sitting in right now, Switzerland, right? We know Basel. Anyone been to Basel? A few Baselers? Yes. All right. What famous mathematicians came from Basel? Test for the audience. Famous mathematicians from a few. I heard Euler. Who said Euler? Yes. Euler is one. Then Bernoulli's. Yes. So I love Basel because I love mathematics. I teach mathematics, and my books, as you mentioned, some of them have mathematics in them. And so for me, Basel is going to a mecca of mathematics. But Basel also happens to be a fantastic pharmaceutical land and city, and we have Roche and Novartis and many others there as well. So Switzerland is one of the 5 countries, but it's only a handful of countries that own 95% of the IP of biotech. And so I said to many of the countries out there, including in the Gulf and other places, why is that the case? Why do you want to be dependent on 5 countries when you could start creating drugs yourself? And that, by the way, that takes nothing away from Switzerland. This is a everyone wins, pie gets bigger scenario, because we have all these diseases out there that have no solution. And that, I think, is what I think is going to happen now. We're going to start seeing the UAE and Bahrain and Saudi and countries in Africa and countries in Southeast Asia start to actually independently create their own biotech sectors. This is my hope, it's my aspiration. Maybe it's a dream, but I do think it's going to happen in the next 5-6 years.
The interesting thing, Jack, is it's precisely because you're a dreamer that you aim for the moonshot and you always make it happen. So for investors today looking to leverage AI and quantum, what do you think they should be looking at? What are the areas that are most promising? Where are these opportunities mostly today?
Well, I would look at 2 big buckets of investment. One is to invest directly in the technology companies themselves, right? And so there are public companies. You can look at Google, you can look at Microsoft, you can look at any number of companies that have a good exposure to the upside of AI. So that's one way to play it. Another way, of course, is private companies, and there's a range of companies you can invest in on the private side. And you may want to believe that that company will either become a big company, or you may say, you know what? I don't know if this company has the complete platform to become a big company, but maybe they can get acquired. We acquired 2 companies. We're probably going to acquire additional companies over the next coming years. And so that could be a good payout for investors as well. If they think, hey, I'll invest in it, maybe Sandbox AQ will acquire that company. That's another way of doing it. Number 2, I would make sure to look at beyond just large language models. Make sure that when you're investing, you're exposing yourself in your investment portfolio to more than just one slice of AI. So large language models, excellent. They'll have a great future. Quantitative models, LQMs like we do, again, AI for the real world, I think that's an investable bucket as well. Robotics, I would definitely have something in your portfolio with robotics. You could just buy Tesla shares if you want to, because it's my belief that in the next 36 months, the valuation of Tesla will double. Today's valuation is $1.5 trillion. I do believe that valuation will double. I'm not giving here stock tips, so don't come back to me. But I can tell you that over the years, people have thanked me for my stock insights, not tips, but insights, because I do think that Tesla is a robotics company. I do not think of it as a car company. A few weeks ago, the numbers of how many Tesla cars were being sold came out, and people were like, I thought it was going to be 414,000. I thought it was It doesn't matter. That is not what Tesla is about. Tesla is fundamentally a robotics company, and what Elon has done so well, he's understood that he had to make his own chip, the D1 chip, and other chips that he's now designed for the Tesla cars and robotics. He understood the software, and he hired some of the top people to make that robotic software. And number three, he understood that he has multiple platforms. Robotaxis is one, and then of course he has the humanoid robot, the Optimus. And I think in 5 to 7 years, I can imagine Tesla selling its car manufacturing unit, either spinning it out for investors as another holding, or maybe partnering with others, and becoming a core automation and robotics company with more than 1 million robots produced in 7 years, is my prediction. I guess we have to come back in 7 years now. Yeah.
But I would say even faster, because if you look in the next 18 months, Elon's humanoid factory will be ready. He's already working with Samsung to produce the chip in Texas. So it is happening, it is real. If I look now at AI and quantum, they're converging rapidly. So we talked about quantum is coming, AI, we're doing a lot of powerful things. How and when do you see that intersection coming together? And what do you think will be the first enterprise and scientific applications?
Well, first of all, when we think about quantum, I know most people everywhere think about quantum computing, but there's much more, Tassos, to quantum than quantum computing. Let's talk about quantum sensors. A sensor is something as simple as a thermostat that we can turn up and down, and it's sensing the temperature in our room, and then it's going to adjust it accordingly. So you have a sensor, you have a simple algorithm. The algorithm is not software in that case. It's really two pieces of metal that are stuck together in an old type of thermostat, and that's the algorithm. It's embedded algorithm in that particular thermostat. But now we can go well beyond that. And now we can have a quantum sensor. What is a quantum sensor? A sensor that takes advantage of a quantum phenomenon, allows us to sense our world in very different ways, specifically, Tassos, in magnetism. Our world has a lot of magnetism all around it. Our Earth has created a magnetic field. Everyone here probably experienced as a kid with a compass, seeing where north is, and a ship does that and things like that. So there are magnetic fields coming from the Earth itself. Thank God there are, because it protects us from some of the harmful exposure to the sun. Planets that have lost their magnetic field are ones that are very, very difficult to live on. But we also have magnetism coming from our bodies. Right now, everyone in this room hopefully has a heart, unless it's a Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. And your heart is emitting a magnetic field. Your brain is emitting a magnetic field. So the more that we can pick up these magnetic fields, the more we can understand our world and our own bodies. In the case of navigation, right now, if you fly a plane to about a quarter of the world, you will not find good GPS. And that is because people are jamming GPS, and even worse, Tassos, spoofing GPS. Meaning that you're flying your plane, you think you know where you're going, your navigation system tells you you know where you're going, but it's actually a false signal. And that false signal is GPS spoofing. And of course, it's well known that Iran has been doing GPS spoofing for a number of years. That's public information. The airplane of Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU, was targeted 5 months ago by a state-sponsored actor. It was GPS targeted. What does it mean to be GPS targeted? It means that the plane was flying at 500-600 kilometers an hour and lost GPS due to a beam that was beamed to the plane to frustrate and kill the GPS signal. How hard is it to frustrate and kill a GPS signal? Not hard at all. A GPS wave looks like this, and if I know that wave, I know the frequency and wavelength, we have to know it because our phones have to pick it up. It's public information. All we do is buy a little walkie-talkie-like thing like this. We transmit the exact opposite wave. So when the GPS goes up, we go down. Cancels. Gone. If you go on some of the interesting darker websites, you can buy this device for about $1,000. You can block all GPS in Davos. For $10,000, you can block all GPS in the Canton. For $100,000, I can make one for you that will block all of Switzerland. And so this is going to become more and more often. 41,000 flights in the last 24 months had GPS blockage of some kind. So now, with magnetic sensors that we just talked about, we can pick up the magnetic field of the Earth, the way that birds fly. We can port that to an AI that is quantitative in nature, understands what's happening with the magnetic field, and we can navigate in a way that does not need GPS at all. So that's one of the first applications we're all going to see. We're going to be flying in planes with this backup system that if we lose GPS, we have this as a system. So that is an example of needing a quantum sensor because the magnetic field of the Earth, Tassos, is so weak. We need that kind of activity.
Jack, it's always a delightful pleasure. Every time we talk, we dive deeper, and I always learn something. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to welcoming you next year. Thank you, my friend.
You.
Let's get a picture real quick.
Picture?
Yeah.